Well, I think that the huge daily exposure of many chemicals that we're confronted with, uh, when a lot of the environmental movement began to look at environmental health issues, it was a dump site, Hooker Chemical at Love Canal, or Beatrice and Grace Chemicals up at Woburn, or the proliferation of industrial sites in black communities, hazardous waste facilities, the large emitters of pollution and contamination. I think now it's real important to see that our everyday products that we put on our bodies as cosmetics and deodorants, the products that are in our cleaning fluids, the products that are just released through a whole number of things like the plastic bags that we put in our garbage can, and the clothes that we wear, and the flame retardants that are full in our TVs and our mattresses and our sofas, that there's so much of this going on that no one ever tells us about. And I think calling attention to that and calling attention to the growing scientific discovery that these are causing disease, they are causing changes in our DNA, that they are causing all sorts of damages to the environment. These are important things that I think need to be known. So I see greater regulation of many of these chemicals, and I see enormous attention. Who could have imagined 5 years ago that there would be a large movement focused around bisphenol A? And who would have thought that there would be a whole movement of people just trying to get plastic water bottles removed? Who would have thought that climate justice could generate all this campus activity? Just a few years ago, people would have said that's wishful thinking. So I think what I like to do is to be part of those innovative things on the forefront, and to say the precautionary principle told us to look at these things. We knew that these things didn't belong there. We knew that they were designed even for the wrong kinds of purposes. And let's go ahead and look at them and see what we can do to act and to change and to get regulation. So I think it's the everyday awareness of the everyday chemicals that are there and don't need to be, because the same thing that you put on your body as a deodorant in the US with phthalates is sold in Europe without those phthalates. It's just as effective, and it's not more costly. Well, obviously, a lot of people try to buy green cleaning products. They try to buy organic foods. They try to use less cleaning products. They realize that they don't have to buy products. Half the things that they could need to clean, they could do ammonia and water with. So, yeah, obviously, a lot of education about personal changes in cosmetics and cleaning products and the kinds of products that we use on an everyday basis. But that's never the only solution, because we want to actually make it safe for people. We don't want to have to go into the store and hold our phone up and get a barcode read so that it will then take us to a website that says, yes, buy this product. It's been vetted by such and such a green organization. I mean, that's nice if that can happen, but why have those products out there in the first place? There's so many toxic chemicals in our daily lives that don't need to be there. So the average citizen then has to figure out ways to affect policy, sometimes at a very local level, at a state level, at a federal level, and sometimes at shareholder meetings, because corporations often will act even before the government will change policy. So I think the average citizen has to engage in their personal lives with citizens to find out, what can we do together? What are the local problems? How can we form a new organization to change things? How can we ask the city parks department to turn over vacant lots so that we can begin to plant community gardens and talk about the healthful effects of that? How can we help local farmers so that we buy more locally? Keep farming as a good local family industry, and at the same time, use less of a carbon footprint to get food, and get people eating healthier food, in getting that food into corner grocery stores. So very local level, but then let's get that into the Farm Bill too. Let's get, instead of funding tons of dollars to dump milk down drains to keep milk prices stable, instead of getting the agricultural extension folks to teach people how to spray, instead of allowing pesticide drift in California to go all over the place and affect so many poor farm workers who don't even have enough washing stations to clean themselves off. Those levels are what we need to be looking at. That's where the biggest change will happen. A woman in Sweden doesn't have to worry about PBDEs showing up in her breast milk. She doesn't have to go and get tested for this. She doesn't have to worry about what products to buy because there's a government looking out for her and saying, we want to be much more precautionary, we want to be much lower on the chain. We don't want to have all these chemicals. And if you don't have to worry yourself, you don't have to have all the anxiety about it, and you don't have to spend all the time doing that research yourself. You shouldn't have to do that all the time. We want people to be educated. We want them to be citizen scientists. We want them to be educated lay people. But they shouldn't spend their whole time both worrying about it and getting that information. It should be a situation where they can affect policy to get as many toxics out of the daily stream of life as they can. It's actually in our economic interest to convince corporations, because they find that if they're going to sell products to Northern Europe, they can't fill them up with the same contaminants that they would like to here. And it winds up being effective, just like we now say green chemistry is one of the waves of the future. Well, let's find ways to make things that are cleaner. If you've got toxic chemicals, you're going to pay a higher insurance liability premium because of handling them. You're going to pay much higher toxic waste disposal fees than if they were non-toxic waste. You're going to have much lower costs for your health insurance for your workers because they will be exposed to less toxic hazards. You'll sell more products because people say you're a green company, you're a good citizen. And it also turns out that this opens up a whole new wave of chemical discoveries. Just as petrochemicals were scientifically, monumental in the post-World War period, yes, there were a lot of amazing discoveries, many of which we now think are harmful when they're used. But green chemistry, which California wisely has a green chemistry initiative to do this, this will be a great new advance. Just like with alternative energy, we'll find wonderful new ways to do science, to do engineering, to make policy, to make things better and cheaper and safer. Well, some corporations are and some are not. I mean, the corporate world is not monolithic any more than government. Some government agencies are much more sympathetic to the kinds of things I've talked about than others. And obviously it changes from one administration to another. Certain corporations are very concerned about climate change. The energy companies are not. I mean, the energy companies are causing a lot of this. But companies that are affected by it, say the insurance industry, not a wonderful actor in many people's eyes, is at odds with the chemical industry and the oil industry over this. And so the idea is to find where are these lacunae, where are these holes, these channels of getting in and showing people you could do something good and it would benefit you. And that maybe your trade association hasn't agreed yet, but you could be a corporate leader and you could convince them. And you could maybe increase your market share by being a corporate leader in this area. So yes, many of them are changing, partly by consumer pressure, partly because green chemistry is showing them that they can do things cheaper, cleaner, safer. But it's a very slow process because they've gotten used to things that are being used for decades, and they're afraid of change. They're afraid, can we give this product up today? Will we lose market share? The flame retardant industry, for example, tells the manufacturers of electronics, if you don't add our flame retardants to your computers and monitors, well, we'll find a way to let people know that your computers aren't as fire safe. Well, they don't need to be full of these flame retardants, and indeed a very international collaboration of scientists and scholars and activists and government agencies convinced the International Electronics Association to not add all of these. But if you have a small number of corporations with a lot of power pushing it, then it becomes harder to do that. Sometimes California has this very stringent fire safety standard, and you'll pick up a tag on the bottom of your chair, and it'll see, this meets California TB 117, Technical Bulletin 117 for flame retardants. It's like a Texas school textbook, right? School market is so big there that if they don't want you to talk about evolution in Texas textbooks, well, the textbook manufacturers don't want to do two different textbooks, one for Texas and one for Oklahoma. Well, maybe Oklahoma is not a good example. But so then you're going to get this watered down anti-evolution textbook. And then you're going to get flame retardants in products all over the country because nobody wants to have to manufacture the thing twice. This was good when it was California air emission standards for cars. It is not good when it's flame retardant standards. But again, it's that kind of, sometimes one actor, one state. Here's a place where you've got a state that leads in emission standards. The Clean Air Act was pioneered by what California had done. California is great on a lot of things. And even under a Republican governor, they try to go very green in a lot of ways. The first green chemistry initiative, the first state biomonitoring program to look at toxics in people's bodies. But also at the same time, a retrograde policy in terms of flame retardants.